Good evening, Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope, as well as our other streaming outlets. And tonight is our every other Wednesday, first and third Wednesday of the month, where we talk to Sharon, who is the co-host, and we discuss early education and early educators, early education educators. Excuse me. Um, tonight we have a very interesting topic, and it kind of coincides with inauguration day. With when is it time, or when is the appropriate time to teach our children civics and understanding um, your right as a citizen in the country, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
That certain things are that they have a right to do and a choice to do as well. And the premise is from the cradle to the voting booth. Good evening, Sharon.
Hey. What's happening,
I'm
Quentin?
all
How are
right.
you?
I see you have your pearls on.
Yes, I was supporting my sister Prez, Kamala, and shouting out the HBCUs. I'm really proud of all of the leadership that are representing HBCUs in DC right now. So um, it feels good, Proud. I'm proud to be a product.
Great. So when we discuss Sharon, one of the things that we want to discuss is no matter where you feel on the spectrum of the right or the left, you want to be an educated voter when you're reach the voting age.
Right. Yes. No matter. Yes. And that's the topic tonight. It has no political side. It's like if you live in America, you need to understand how American government is supposed to work and what all of that means. And I think that while I give the big ups to my Spelman sister Stacy for all of the hard work she did in turning out the vote, getting new voters registered, I still believe that there are still thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of voters untapped simply because of what we're talking about. It was, all we hear is partisan talk once we get out of school, and we don't hear America the Great talk. We don't hear the United States of America. All we hear is about the divided states of America. So, and it starts young, teaching about civics and how to be a good citizen. And my girlfriend and I were talking the other night. It's kind of how I came up with the topic, how the curriculum has changed so much since we were in school. We got all these basics and understanding how the government works. And I remember my fifth grade teacher, to help us grasp, we had a class court. So when you broke a rule, there was a fine, and you could either opt to pay the fine, which was like, a nickel, dime, 20 cent, whatever, or you could go to court if you felt that you had been accused of something you didn't do. And we had a judge and lawyers and, public defenders. And so she taught us about that just by having us engage with it. And I think that I'm not saying that there are no teachers out there that are doing it, but I'm more concerned about the actual curriculum. The curriculum books are changing, and the stories that they're telling are not always necessarily 100% proof.
One of the things that I want to ask you is
Mhm.
you're exactly right that majority of the history in our school system, even going way back, it's not true. Um, they will teach you some form of American history, but they omit a lot out. I don't know if they're trying to be, and I'm not being naive when I say this. I don't know if they're being case sensitive, so to say, or sensitive dealing with slavery. Because Sharon, I'm getting kickback. Do you have your phone or something by your the speaker? You have a microphone by the speaker or something?
Is that better?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. My phone was right here on the arm of the chair. I
Okay.
will keep that in mind. Oh wait, I did it because I was supposed to be putting it on silent so that it didn't ring while we were in the. All right.
So we know that even when we were in grade school, that a lot of the teaching outside of English, um, and math, everything else might have been a lie, or what we were taught to learn. Do you think that, just to bring it up a little bit to the voting aspect, and this is definitely what we would consider a bipartisan conversation. Do you think that most people that do vote don't vote to their interest?
Oh yeah. Well. I think they're voting to their interest. I believe that a big piece of that is, do they even know what their interests are? You know what I'm saying? We have such a crowd mentality. Um, so people will um, just kind of follow the crowd, the masses, and so when you jump on board with a party, people are just gung ho for the party. And I think, as with anything, we're talking about people. There are people who make really great decisions and really try to uphold, standards and ethics. And then there are people who don't. And I think you have those kinds of people on all sides. And so I think that most people don't do their homework because they don't know that they have homework to do. They've been, they've just been taught that this is what our family does, and you're a part of our family, so you're going to go do it too. And I just think that um, I don't agree with that, because I feel like you have to, because check this out, right? What if there's more than one person in your party running for the same office? How do you vote now? Who do you vote for? Which one do you vote for? How do you know which name to pick? And a lot of people are standing in the voting booth going, eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
And in many cases, that happens in smaller towns because you may be in an area where there is no other party opposition, but it may be just a one party town, or just the other party. Like, a specific town might be Democratic for so long, they don't really have Republicans, but it might be Democrats fighting for that one position. So now you have such an allegiance to this party. Now you saying, because you don't know the issues, you don't know who to vote for. Now it comes down to what many way feel like, oh, I'm gonna vote for the popular guy or whoever got the most money or so forth.
I mean, you'd be surprised at some of the reasons people vote for people, because he's handsome. She has great hair. I love her voice. I like the way I like his stance. He has such posture and poise. So again, nothing about what they stand for, what's their record, how have they voted in the past, what kind of leadership have they shown, what were they doing even in their local government before they went to DC. And so, but if you don't even understand how our government works and how the voting process works, because a lot of people, you know, this they don't understand the electoral college, and they don't understand that, they don't understand the whole process that happened on January the 6th, and that it was not fully official until that process took place. And even during that process, their objections could be made, and if they were substantiated, it could have prolonged the process even further. So we just, and then the same thing for January. I mean, yeah, for January 6th, you could say that there are people who didn't understand, or because they feel like they're patriots, but what happened was not patriotic at all, and I just think that people get into positions and they begin to promote propaganda, and we just buy into it hook, line, and sinker. We don't question, and that goes for both sides. That's all people. We don't question. We follow blindly because we think we believe in the cause. And if someone would have really said, well, what is your cause? To make America great again by tearing down the Capitol?
One of
How?
one, one of the things that I had noticed, right,
Mm-hmm.
and like when you say both sides, the
Well, all
rhetoric,
sides.
the rhetoric that went on, and it's been going on in the two party politics. I would say probably the last 7 8 years that some of the words they're using, in my personal opinion, it incites a group of people that number one, we're fearful people because a lot of people feel like I worked hard to get where I'm at. I did all this. All this is mine. I don't need the government infringing on what I have. So when you hear words like this is an attack on democracy, we need to defend the republic. These type of words, I can only speak from somebody that I consider myself a layman.
Mm-hmm.
That if I heard these words and didn't understand a little bit about how it's all set up, these
Mm-hmm.
words would scare the average person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that not only just the media and the parties have done a real bad job with this is how they're politicking, because at the end of the day, for the most part, they're back in them back rooms drinking coffee and having tea with each other. Why the majority of people are sitting here arguing on social media, going crazy, breaking up friendships. And I was once told that if you could tell me how your personal life actually changed from a national election, you're good because really it's the local politics, and that's really what we want to address and how you as an educator can get our younger people to understand the process of being able not just going to vote, but be an educated voter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I'm gonna ask you a question. When did you have your um, first experience with understanding politics to the point where you could say you know what you're doing when you went in that voting booth?
Um, I'm gonna say I was educated about the process. I understood the process. I understood, parties and understood some of the underlying values, of the history of the parties. Because of course, over time, I believe they have kind
Change.
of, yeah, they're not necessarily standing for what originally when the parties were created. However, um, when I was a lot younger, I think I took more interest in really looking at what was going on because I'm just a curious. I'm a learner, a lifelong learner. But then as you start to get older and life starts happening, things start happening, for some reason, I kind of checked out a little because what was most important, was my immediate microcosm. And so I'm, like you said, I would pay attention to school district votes and those kind of things. And you have to remember now, I came to Atlanta when I was 18. So the very first time I voted as an adult was here. And it pretty much has been here ever since. So it was interesting watching the politics of Atlanta because I came to Atlanta during a time when it was on the toes of the Black Mecca period. And so just a very cultural, historical, it was an awesome time for me to be here. And I got to see a lot and experience a lot. And I think that um, that's only because I, decided to come to college. I wonder what my experience may have been had I stayed in Philadelphia and maybe gone to, Drexel or, U of Penn. So definitely your experiences, your environment, what your parents know, because again, I grew up in a household where everybody voted, but they never really talked a whole lot about what was going on. It was always just the Dems versus the Republicans, Oh no, we better vote for, whoever it was at the time and blah blah blah. And so I just feel like I think that I think we need so much more when it comes to our public education in particular. I was sharing with you at the opening, well, before we opened, that from the cradle to the voting booth. I'm cradle to kindergarten is my main focus, and has been for the past 30 years or so. And we begin at the very early stages teaching children how to be good citizens. We teach them how to clean up behind themselves. We teach them how to get along with other people. We teach them how to have a conversation, and you talk a little bit, and then you listen a little bit, and then you talk a little bit. We teach them manners. So we're teaching these foundational skills of being a responsible, productive citizen, right? And like I said, it somewhere along the line, it gets lost. And, I think that's when the home environment really comes into play a lot. If the parents are actively involved, if they pay attention, if they know what's going on, then it may trickle down, to the children. But we know that in a lot of environments, parents don't even have an understanding. And so you can't give what you don't have. And I think that while sometimes we put the wrong emphasis on what the school system should be doing as far as educating our children, I think that oftentimes we miss the mark. I think we have opportunities that we don't take advantage of when we really could be creating awesome, amazing future citizens who probably would never have something like that we've lived through over the past several years, probably, possibly wouldn't have happened.
I think that one of the biggest things, and is, I'm glad you touched on it, is, and you always hear a lot of the elders say it, and whenever something happens, and they'll always refer to it. And I'm a firm believer in saying that the reason why, as a country, we can't get past certain things, and we always seem to be right back at the same stumbling block, is because we never made, quote unquote, the atonement for its original sin. A lot of people will be like, well, our Native Americans, they got reparations, and they're acknowledged by certain things that they got. But what about the blacks that were here, that were put into servitude, slavery, all the way to Jim Crow? I'm talking, we talking about 200-300 years of just atrocities, and it's like people will continuously say it wasn't my direct ancestors. And you never hear a quote unquote politician even offer a formal apology. And it's like we always feel like we're past it. Even you saw some of the rhetoric from people that stormed the Capitol, like, "Oh, this is not America." Yes, it is America.
Quentin, that I was sitting there watching as one of the senators spoke that he said, "This is not who we are." And I was like, but that's where this is, you all are missing the point. It is exactly who we are. This is exactly who we have become. And not even become, it's always been who America has been. It's just that we began to create laws and make changes, and we created this ideal of what America is. But the reality is, No, we are a very divided union, very white, black. I mean, the differences were blatant in what happened, what we watched happen to protesters who were not armed, who were not carrying uh, um, artifacts that are used for farming, but could very easily be turned into a weapon, because we already know, had we even tried some.
You know,
And so,
and that's the thing. Not to cut you off, but that's the thing
mhm,
that is amazing is we saw it the days after where the president at the time, he denounced it in the best way that I guess he thought he could, and you saw the incoming president. I think he made a statement that was so profound, but it's like scary because he clearly said, "We all know if it would have been black people," and for us to continue having to say we know what would have happened if it would have been black people, when historically, like, all for nothing, and we ain't trying to give nobody no history class, but the black slaves built the country, and
mhm,
it's like,
we invented pretty much every patent.
and it's like, okay, at the end of the day, we do want to educate our children, get them to be more civically inclined, get them to vote local elections, do all this, but it's like Dr. King said, we're still living in two Americas.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've seen a black slave, no, no, not a black slave, a black man, son of two immigrants, son of one woman who was Native American or German, whatever she was, and his father was Guyanese. We've seen him become the president of the United States, be at the pinnacle. Now we have a black Asian vice president,
Mm-hmm.
but the root of America's biggest issues is still. It's like, you put you got the burnt popcorn. I'm just using popcorn because I got a taste for some right now. But you got the burnt popcorn. You done had the popcorn in the microwave too much, but it's your last bag and you don't want to throw it away. So what you do, you try to take the burnt popcorn off the top, or you might shake it up and be like, hopefully all the burnt popcorn get to the bottom. And it's not.
It's still gonna taste burnt. Yeah, because you have a whole population who hate what our government looks like right now. They hate it. There are too many black and brown faces, and they hate that. And that's sad that we, that it took all of the events of the past several years, and earlier this month in particular, to really kind of wake some people. Some people are still in denial. They're still in denial. However, there are so that I just believe in now. It's almost like, okay, you kind of can't ignore it anymore, you know? And now is the time. So you got to strike while the iron is hot. That's why we've got to teach our young people about what's really going on, because now is the time to strike while the iron is hot and begin to really push. Last time I was here, we talked about resolutions or revolution, right? Talked about change. Now we're talking about making sure that our children and youth understand the America that they live in and what it's supposed to look like. What does it really truly represent?
It's interesting. You said that a lot of us are caught up in the idea of America, the idea of, and it's funny because when you're dealing with law, and I learned this when I was going through my little law phase and going to school, that uh, when they interpret law, they always go back to what was intended by the founding fathers. And if you noted, the founding fathers were owners of slaves, and they felt that the black man and black women wasn't a full man, how could you interpret laws that they made to try to be applicable for a group of people who wasn't even considered whole?
And that's why our system is broken, because when the country was founded, America was not, we the people did not include you and me. We, it wasn't we, it was we. And so from the very onset of how this country was built and established, and the fact that people really believed that it was that was what was great about it, and however, we also believe that we are the great melting pot, and we invite everybody, just come to America and live the American dream. Yet you have Americans who are citizens of this country who still, that dream is so far away from them, for them, and for some of them the American dream is a nightmare.
Yeah.
For many of us it's a nightmare. And so much, when you look at our penal system, you're innocent until proven guilty. But how many innocent people sit in jail for 2 to 3, and God knows how long they're going to sit now because of COVID, sit in jail, lost all freedoms, being treated like a criminal, but yet in our country it says that they're innocent till they go to court and it's been proven that they're guilty.
I mean,
So,
even in that aspect, which I call myself having a lot of information on, even that aspect, people have learned to being able to capitalize off of that and make that a cash cow as well.
oh
Where
yeah, because you're innocent. If you got deep pockets, you could be innocent and walk the street for 2 years while you wait for your trial. But if you don't have big pockets, you're innocent behind bars.
just think about that when and I'm not trying to take the subject away, but
That's okay. Listen, we go wherever it takes us. Quick.
you're being charged with a crime. You're supposedly innocent until guilty, but they lock you up until you go to court. Instead of saying, okay, we know who you are, because they do. They know who you are. We got charges on you. We're going to let you go home, but you're going to face these charges. And if you get found guilty, that's when you go to jail. Not you go to jail first. So if a person is sitting in jail, whether it's 6 months to 2 years to 3 years, and hopefully you get what they call a speedy trial, if you get found not guilty, do you get those wages back? And no.
Right. Now you've lost your job. Some people have lost their, the family. A mom who's sitting at home with 3 young children, and dad is now sitting in jail for something that he didn't do. Mistaken identity. I mean, it could be something as simple as mistaken identity. And if nobody within the system fights for this person, the real true guilty person could be found on another charge and be sitting in jail with the person. And unless somebody advocates and says, wait a minute, hold up. This is the person that committed the crime. Why is he still sitting in here? Obviously, he didn't do it. We caught the perpetrator. So, so that's what I said, that there are all kinds of inconsistencies in how our United States of America works. And I don't know that I would necessarily, I don't know enough about the governments of other countries. I know there are pros and cons. I think of any place, I don't think there's any perfect place on earth to live unless you own the island and you have your own government and you're the leader, then it's best for you. But
It's funny you said that because I was sitting there, I was doing some research early on the electoral college.
Mhm.
And I believe that a child, a young adult, when you learn about the Civil War, I think it's very important that you learn about the electoral college after that, because that's what birthed the electoral college and why it was formed. And I don't want to get into no debates with nobody. Then they may understand why the Civil War really was fought. You know,
Yeah.
you know,
There's always nothing is ever as it seems.
yeah. But I really think that, and it's funny because Electoral College, like you said, um, January 6th had to happen. Not the storm of the Capitol and all that stuff, but the official voting had to be
Mhm.
certified and stuff.
Mhm.
So I think that a lot of people, as crazy as it may seem, the last 6 years with what's been going on in politics, I believe that the American people are starting to wake up. I believe that they're starting to really understand it a little bit better. Um, I believe that they're realizing the power of voting in the block, um, holding politicians accountable. You just don't be burning nobody's house, breaking nobody's house, no matter what side they're on. That's
Kidnapping
crazy.
people.
And Sharon, I always think about it the weekend before that Capitol thing happened when Nancy Pelosi's house got vandalized and Mitch McConnell's house got vandalized. I said to myself, I said, this is crazy because how could you be that upset when most people don't know is when you have an elected official, if you go try to see them, they can't deny you to see them. I just want people to know that. It sounds crazy. You might not can't get to the president or the vice president, but if you go to DC and you want to see your local representative, your senator, your congressman, whatever, they cannot deny you to see them unless they're in session.
Right.
That's why their offices are down there. So if you might. I know everybody ain't got no money for. Everybody don't have money to get on a
Oh
plane or.
wait, but Quentin, they come home. Every state has a capital.
Yeah, they
They
can't deny
come
you.
home. They're not in DC the whole time. They come home because they're in session here at the state level, making decisions at the state level. So it's all about, again, it's the education, and we have to start with ourselves. Like I said, I'm not fully 100% educated on all of this, but I do know that change. I can't even say change gonna come. Change is here, and it's up to us to capitalize. Every great dynasty, every great empire has fallen. And we tend to think about when, the United States has been referred to as the greatest empire yet. And when we think about an empire falling, we think about like the Roman, it just gets destroyed, and it is demolished and new regime. That doesn't necessarily mean that America has to be totally destroyed in order for the empire to fall and a new regime to rise up. It's happening now. You've got common everyday people in Congress. How did that doesn't normally happen?
Yeah,
You already know. Normally people get groomed to go to Congress to do the bidding of those that groomed them.
I think
But
that
we've got some folks that just said, I'm tired of
I,
this, I'm running.
I'm telling you, I really think that a lot of us in the last 6 years are really sitting back, looking at some of these documents and saying, "Hold up, this is a republic. It's supposed to be for the people, by the people. I got more clout than I thought I did." Yeah, you can go to your mayor's office and your mayor cannot deny you to see you. Same thing with your senators, your congressmen. They cannot deny you. I want people to know that because I think I was taught that. And I'm like, what you mean? They're like, look, if you ever want to go see one of them, they can't deny you unless they're physically in session. And then they'll tell you they gotta wait. So it's ways to go about being able to uh, as we would say, organic lobbying your politicians.
But guess what? If we don't know that, that's why it's important. That's why it's important. And
I'm gonna
we
ask
have
you
enough. Uh-huh.
now. Me and you are about the same age. Um, and this is important that I bring this up because I had an uncle that told me. He said, nephew, one of the biggest problems that happened that how they messed up the school system. I'm not trying to get into your political beliefs, but it's going to tap into it a little bit. He said, nephew, one of the things they did in this country that was wrong was the separation of church and state. He said they took prayer and certain things out of school. And I said, what made you say that? He was religious, but he wasn't real religious. I said, what made you say that? He said, because even though the prayer was there, he said, we learned civics in the process of the prayers. He's like, you had people that questioned why we have to say the Star Spangled Banner. He said now they just don't say it or whatever. He said even then you had people question, and teachers were held. Most teachers, if they knew what they were talking about, they had to teach
Mm-hmm.
why this is this, why this is that. And I say that because most people I know didn't learn who Christopher Addicts was until we got out of high school.
Wow. And see, I learned that in the fifth grade. So I happened to be, oh geez, I'm about to age myself. I don't care. I was in the fifth grade during the portion of the bicentennial year.
Okay.
And so my fifth grade teacher was very creative, and like a big piece of our curriculum, everything that she taught was around that. A lot of it was around that era. So we learned who Chris. Matter of fact, we did a little play, and I didn't realize it till I got older that many of the famous people that we were representing, they were black colonialists, black colonists that we were representing, and Crispus Attucks was one of them. So we learned about. I think I was Phyllis Wheatley,
Mm.
and in Atlanta, it was when I came here. There's a YMCA it's not open anymore right now, but it was the Phyllis Wheatley Y. And that's why I said Atlanta was a cool place. When I got
So
here,
you took a lot of pride when you seen that. Why, like, hold up, I
yeah,
played.
because I knew, yeah, I was like, oh my God, I know who Phyllis Wheatley is, because I was her, had to dress up in little colonial style clothing and had my pen and my piece, my quill, wasn't a pen. For those of you who don't know what a quill is, Google it. I had my quill and my paper as my props, and I said my little my little speech. I don't remember that part, but I said my little speech, and they're not like now when we go to PTA and children are performing, it's cute. They're musicals, the kids can sing. That
It's, a,
one of
it's,
the one of the best musicals I saw, my son's high school did Schoolhouse
I
Rock.
tell you, it's one of the you know,
Schoolhouse Rock, bring them
me,
back.
me and you share a lot in common. Even though I'm not an author, I know you're an avid reader like myself.
You are an author. You
You,
are just not a published author.
yeah, and one of the things about reading and learning this stuff, and I hate to say it, when we talk about this subject, it's like American history is not even that old, but it
Right.
got so much lies in it.
And,
I used
and
to think, like, you
I
would
want to
think,
go back to your uncle for just a second.
okay,
Why did Europeans come to America in the first place?
oh, they were kicked out. They were the criminals.
Uh, Not all of them.
Well,
Well, they were
the
they
American
were
dream.
criminals, but why were they being considered criminals in Britain?
They were going against the establishment.
Yeah, they wanted to worship the way they wanted to worship.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why this country was founded on Christian morals and ethics. Now, I'm not going to get into religion because that's a whole nother 3-month series of podcasts. Because for every person, there's a perspective on religion. So we're not even going to go there. But what I will say is one of the things that religion does is it brings a set of morals and values and ethics that you are supposed to hold yourself to. So there are certain things that you just won't do because it bumps up against your belief system and your value system. And that to me is the most important thing, that these were upstanding Christian men who had some ethic, and yes, slavery is unethical, But when it was happening, they didn't believe that. They didn't believe that. So in their mind, they were doing ethical things. So our job, I'm gonna bring it back. Hopefully it doesn't mess you up too much, right? This is 2000. This is an old version. So this is what 2018, maybe cell phone, Android, Galaxy, right? You remember what they looked like when they first came out?
We had the flip, big. Here you
Before
go.
the
Here you go. I
They were
got
about
stuff.
as big as this water bottle. Hold it up to your ear. You got one? You got
I
an
can't.
old
You
cell
know what?
phone?
I got it. No, I have this thing here that I can't even pull it off my other table.
All right, that's all right. But you get those of us
Yeah.
who are old enough, we get okay. I'll give you another analogy. A 2021 Chevy, whatever, versus a 1905 Chevy, right? Remember the big screen console TV, the floor model if you had a floor model color TV in your house, you were uppity, right?
Yeah.
Now everybody got flat screens in their household. Remember when they first came? So my point is, how come everything in society changes and evolves except our damn government? We're still there are law books on they don't enforce these laws because some of these laws are really stupid laws. But why are we not bothered? Because if that anarchy foolishness, oh, excuse me, if that group of people who believe what they believe were to be able to get into power, you don't think some of them stupid laws on the law books would all of
Well,
a sudden begin to
the,
be enforced?
the thing that's interesting about the laws really don't get abolished, like you said. Laws like we even the civil rights of 1964 still refers to the other civil rights of the 1800s. That law is still like the law, like you said, like don't the laws aren't progressive as the people are.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting.
I just missed my son. So yeah, but that for me, um, it's all a part of it. It all works together. So everything morphs, everything changes, it gets better. I love Piedmont Hospital here in Atlanta, and I'm sure other hospitals do, but I can only speak for what I know. Piedmont Hospital has this display as you're walking down the hall, and it takes medicine. I mean, an old school doctor's bag from the early 1900s, what needles used to look like, a bedpan. So it really just kind of chronicles what medicine looked like, you know, 152, well, longer than that now, years ago, and it brings it up closer to the present. And so everything evolves, yet we're still upholding ourselves to laws, like you said,
Well,
that weren't written with us in mind. So
I gotta mess with you.
what?
Well,
Oh,
at least the progressiveness changed the math. That was a low blow. That
I'm
was a
not. I'm
low
not
blow.
going to talk about
That was a low blow.
because I'm gonna tell you what that is again. I see. I'm a conspiracy theorist, so don't get me started. Because I already told you, 1 plus 1 is going to equal 2 to the ends of the universe. On this world, the way we've done it, right?
So you don't have to critical think that.
No, you don't, right? However, all of the children they have to take standardized tests, right? Standardized tests are timed. So you have to finish a certain section within a certain time limit, right? If you know what 1 plus 1 is, if you know what 5 plus 7 is, if you can look at 12 plus 24 and figure it out in your head right quick, you're doing good. But if you have to sit down and make all these boxes and break it down, how are you going to have enough time to finish all those problems on that standardized test? It's a trap. And we buy right on into it. Oh, well, it's meant to help the children with critical thinking skills. Math isn't a critical thinking. Math is an absolute. Teach them critical. Now, problem solve, word problems.
I always thought word problems
Yes.
and you try to teach theory.
Do that right.
To, and that's another thing with theory. When you teach theory to younger kids,
They can't think
you
abstractly.
you yeah you it's really no correct answer. You just want to try to get them to get into that mind, to get in that creative part. But when you're
But
dealing with
not with math. You can do it with anything other than math.
I
That's
done
what
got
I'm
I done
saying.
got you started, right?
What about negotiation skills? That's another reason we get into trouble in our country. We put people in place who have no negotiate. They can't negotiate.
So that was one of our things that we touched on 2 weeks ago. Was now we have um, a secretary of education that has a resume that is according to the title, because we know that she shouldn't have been there. What could we do? What could we do? First of all, we have to do more things on a local level with
Mhm.
dealing with our Department of Education in our towns, and then dealing with them in the state level. What are some of the practical things that just I can do, you can do? Why would for example you mentioned PTA? I
Mhm.
don't have small children. Why would I want to get involved with PTA? I have the time, but
Because the
why?
PTA give reports on what's happening in the school. PTA gives reports often, information from the district level. And so, if nothing else, their what their budget is, how they're going to spend their budget. Now, I'm gonna tell you,
Go ahead.
uh, the in some there's always a PTA. This government thing exists in everything we do. So there's a PTA president and a vice and a secretary and a treasurer. So there's the executive board,
So
right?
stop thinking you can't. Stop thinking politics is not part of your life. It's part of everybody's everyday life.
Everyday life. When you go to a meeting, when you go to a church meeting, all in favor? Aye. Oppose?
Well, if they ever watch C-SPAN, that's how they vote: yays and nays.
Still,
It ain't no yes and no. It's yays and
Robert's rule is
nays.
still in effect in Senate meetings.
Yeah.
It's still so you're right. If you think politics does not affect you, how do we take a poll, right, at work? How many people would a Christmas party with such and such, or how many people would rather just get the bonus? And what do? Majority rules, because that's how other countries may or may not do that, because that's just not how their government works. And so it is all throughout. So we go to PTA meetings, go to school board meetings. So I was fussing because
There's
um,
even there's even a political system in your home, whether people realize it or not.
oh,
Whether,
I,
whether
and I
it's
let my and I let my children know
it
in
might
my
not be a
household.
democracy, but it might be a monarchy.
I
Or,
told them, I
or
said, I'm a democratic dictator. I'm gonna listen to your ideas if they're good and I like them and they don't go against what I feel needs to happen. I'm open to us trying your ideas, but I get the last say so. Remember that.
so,
Nothing trumps mom.
so you have a dictatorship democracy.
There you go, a democratic dictatorship. We can all talk about it. We could discuss it. You could give your viewpoints. I'm willing to listen to everything you want to say. But the ultimate decision, we are not going to take a vote. No, we don't get to vote on it. The only thing you get to vote on is what I say. Would you all rather go to Destin or you want to go to Texas? You get to vote on that. So back to what else we can do. The true story. There's in Fulton County in Georgia. There's a discipline. I'm sure every system has it, but I can only speak from my experience. There's a code of discipline, and something happened with my son, and I was asking for something that was going against the code of discipline. Didn't know that. I went and read it, but I fought anyway. I still won. Okay. And so I was complaining. A friend of mine works for the National Educators Association. And I was like, how can they just do it? He said, oh, they vote on this every summer. Huh? They put it out, they publish it. See, that means we have to read it, right? They publish it. And of course, they don't send everybody an email. It's published on the website, probably buried up under, but the people who know where to find it, right? They publish it and then they hold a vote. So if you don't go to the meeting, you can't vote. So anything that you don't like, you have an opportunity to say, hey, this rule right here sounds a little such and such. You can offer a suggestion. You can say, I feel it infringes upon the children's rights. Like we have the right to tell them what we want in this book, as long as we're not telling them anything off the wall. But how many people are like me? And here, this is high school. How many people like me were I was not aware of that? And when he told me, he said, oh, yeah, he said they don't just publish, they can't just make that. It's a public institution.
That's another thing they teach you when
you can ask for the budget, you can ask for the district, but they can't. That's public information.
I mean, it's remarkable because they'll come out with a law. You may not see it, you may not hear about it, but they have to. It's somewhere, and they'll tell you if you break the law, like you said in that instance, you just broke a rule with school. But if it's like a law, they'll tell you ignorance is not an excuse for breaking the law.
And thank God this was a discipline code at the school, because had it been the law, that's exactly what the judge would have told me.
Yeah.
But I told her, I said, well, in this situation, I'm really, I don't care what that says. This was an extenuating circumstance.
And in many cases, if a person ever just sits and goes to a municipal court, you'll hear a lot of people, and they'll cry. You see some people in some real bad situations, and they'll say, Your Honor, I didn't know. And it's nothing that the judge could do. He can't.
Nothing, because
he might sit there and give the first person the lecture for everybody in the gallery to hear. Mm-hmm. But after that.
So after that, don't come up here to my bitch talking about I ain't know, because I just told you that. Sorry.
$100 fine, $15 court costs, $10 revocation.
But that's another thing that you could do, Quentin. The courts are open. As a citizen, you can go down to the courthouse and you can go into any courtroom and sit and just listen to the proceedings. Yeah. I would suggest that people do that. It's a whole lot different than what we see on Special Victim SVU Law and Order. While the premise is the same and the process is the same, much more glorified for television's sake. I sat in a trial and was about to fall asleep, and I wasn't tired. It just wasn't sensational. It was very boring. That I was like, okay, I'm smart and I get it, but okay, he did it. He did it. Like, for everything that you're showing me.
And just think about that for a person that watches a lot of TV and doesn't understand our court system and doesn't understand innocent until proven guilty. The whole juror process, not that I'm not going to never say that it's tainted, but they don't understand the process. Even to the point, like with the last president, him being impeached. He was impeached just like a person goes to court, they're indicted. Well, for a public figure, impeachment is an indictment.
Right.
He's now it's up to the Senate whether they're going to charge him and convict him. But it's amazing how a lot of people don't understand. Like, unfortunately, he's not the last president. He's not the first president that's been impeached.
And he won't be the last.
And he won't be the last unless and a lot of times, in some cases, and I'm not saying that in his case, through historically, these two parties be so petty with each other that depending on who got the House, if you're the president, you mess up, they're gonna impeach you. So,
Yeah. Well, and I guess I feel like Yeah, and I mean it can happen because it's imbalanced. Um, and yeah, it's just
You know, and
all
that's
for
the funny
one.
thing.
Wait a minute, one nation under God, which we're not up under God anymore, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. No,
That's the
wrong
thing, Sharon.
answer.
When I asked you about when the first time that you had your experience about understanding about American politics, mine was a little bit younger. My grandparents used to watch CNN a lot, C-SPAN a lot,
Mm,
and I was always infatuated. When I was a kid, I always Thurgood Marshall. I liked him for some reason. I don't know
mhm,
if it was the name or whatever. So I always liked the Supreme Court.
mhm,
Even now, I look at the Supreme Court and their rulings, and
mhm.
it's amazing how we're so divisive with our politics and we're caught up with so much stuff. Like right now, quote unquote, the Supreme Court is 6-3 conservative, right? 3 liberal.
Mhm.
But if you look at their rulings that they've been ruling on,
What?
it's very contrary to what we've been told. And it's quite interesting. A person that loves law and tries to understand it is that even them, they may have political affiliation, but they're going to try to. Most of them, from what I've seen lately, they're going to try to stick to the letter of the law the way they interpret it. Now, some of them will, abstain or whatever, but it's an interesting thing that all you heard going back to the two, like I said, the last 6 years with President Obama was, oh, we got to make sure we get a justice in there that's Democrat. We got to make sure we get a
They
justice.
they've been making some decisions that I've been kind of like, what? They said what? They ruled what?
They,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
it'll make
yeah.
you scratch your
But
head.
and that's why I said that part is what makes me believe that that the old empire is it's falling. Because I think people perhaps, I think we still have a long way to go, but they're beginning to truly understand what America means, and it doesn't mean a lot of the rhetoric and propaganda that people have wanted us to believe that it means. And I know some people will listen to this and be like, "Oh, she has no idea." Oh, I have every idea. I have 3 black sons. And all of them have had a run in with the law and I've had to deal with the penal system. That's why I know. That's why I can talk. Mm-mm. I'm not no rose colored glasses, but I do think it could become better. But what I also know is nothing changes when you sit in that chair, Quentin, and I sit in this chair, and all we do is talk. That's how come I'm still, I don't have one close to me in the trenches.
You know, one of
We're
the
early educators. I'm still working, and I'm sure I will be working in some capacity as an advocate for children and families until I take my last breath, no matter where and see, people think being an advocate there's a difference between an advocate and an activist. You could be an advocate in the grocery store, in the doctor's office.
yeah, yeah. Like I
Okay.
always say, you got the teachers that are aggressive, and then you got the teachers that are just have a book on their desk and want you to pick it up. So it's all about, like you said, educating yourself, getting an understanding of where you're at. Um,
Mhm.
understanding why, even to the point of why does these states have different laws. Um, understand the difference between I live in a commonwealth. Understanding what a
Yeah,
commonwealth means, and why can a commonwealth basically act different than the rest of the body. And it's very important that we
it
know
is.
and that.
Man, try to get a divorce in a commonwealth and see what happens. Sure wouldn't have been as easy for me up there as it was down here.
TMI. But anyway,
I'm just saying.
with that,
I mean, that's real. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. You're right. You better know where you live and what governs the state in which you live in.
you're exactly right.
Because the laws are different. They impact you differently.
Any final thoughts, comments?
I just want to encourage all of the listeners to pick one thing this quarter. And I want four things this year that you commit to doing to improve what's the system, whether it's at the educational level, at the local level, if it's in your school, if you just decide to go tutor, whatever it is, do something because we need all of us to make this work.
And always remember, if you wear a pair of jeans, you got four pockets. And in those four pockets, you got local, county, state, and federal. They in those pockets, so you better get in their pockets too. With that, stay blessed, have a safe night, and take care.